Good afternoon. My name is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms, and these are Charter Moms Chats. And we've been going live to talk about issues that families need to know to help their kids get a good education in spite of the pandemic. And we can't have in-person events, but we can talk to our friends over Zoom or StreamYard or things like that. And today, what we want to do is focus on a particular campus, which is Basis San Antonio Northeast, and it's brand new. It just opened in August, and so we have two guests today. So Stacey Schouten is a teacher. So she specifically is a subject expert teacher, and we'll explain more what that is. But that's subject expert teacher, and she teaches grades 1 and 2, and she focuses on the humanities. And so she'll be talking more about how the primary program works at Basis Charter Schools. And we also have Chris Ferguson, who's the head of school at Basis San Antonio Northeast. So, and I have met Chris in person in real life before. I have not met Stacey in real life before, but I remember I saw Chris at the McNay Art Museum, which I haven't been to in months, man. But that's on my wish list of things to go back to. So I'm really happy to have both of you on as guests to talk about Basis San Antonio Northeast and in the primary program in particular. If it's okay, I'm going to jump into some questions. So I'm going to start with a question for Chris, and then I've got a question for Stacey. So, but Chris, I wanted you to tell us about Basis San Antonio Northeast, because it is a brand new campus. And in some ways, it's a little different than some of the other Basis campuses in town. So tell us about what Basis is about and what's unique about Basis San Antonio Northeast.
Yeah, so, we are the newest Basis school here in the San Antonio area. We just opened this year. I have been absolutely blown away by our faculty and our staff and how they've handled just the world this year, but also still maintaining what Basis does, which is really educational excellence and really putting academics as the priority for our students, but within the context of the whole person, and within the context of really a liberal arts education. And so as the newest campus, we opened this year as a K through 5 school. We're located on I-35 in O'Connor, out on the northeast side of town here. And it's been really exciting. The families have really embraced what we're offering, but we're K-5 right now. We're opening enrollment application through K through 7 for this coming school year. And what's really unique about us in comparison to the other Basis schools here in town is we are going to be a full K through 12 campus. And so it provides a really great opportunity for us to build that small community feel from the very beginning and have a full K through 12 experience that, we're going to get to see these kiddos that are starting with us in kindergarten get that full experience and graduate from our high school, and they'll have known those teachers and, having the other schools that I've worked in, having been those K through 12 schools. It's really a powerful experience to see, when the high schoolers get to walk through and see, they do their graduation parade and they're walking past their second grade teachers, and, and the high schoolers do enjoy it too when the little kids come by with their costume parties at Halloween and stuff like that. So that whole community feel, I think, is really important, and is something that we're excited about. Like I said, I've been the faculty that has joined our staff this year is the hardest working group of teachers that I have ever worked with. And I'm glad I get to say that publicly. I keep telling them that during the faculty meetings, and that they've absolutely blown every expectation that I ever had out of the water. So.
Yeah. So I think what I'm just going to follow up. So the building is unique. Like the other Basis campuses in town were built from the ground up, and it's sort of a style of architecture like the schools in Arizona. But the Basis San Antonio Northeast campus is actually it was a college building that's getting repurposed as a K through 12 school, right?
Yeah, and it was really exciting seeing the renovations in the spaces. It is a beautiful, completely renovated space, and when the families get a chance to finally come into the building and see it for the first time and see the classrooms and see how bright they are and actually how large they are as well, that it's really kind of unique. And then the setup of it has allowed us to do a lot of great things this school year, but also long term with utilizing that space. And long term, we'll be able to separate out those slightly older students from the youngest students, and then in a couple of years, we'll be building an additional building here on our campus to to suit the needs of our oldest students as we continue to grow. But yeah, the renovations were amazing. Our head of operations, Ursula Williams, helped oversee that whole transition, and her team did a really amazing job.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to coming to the campus someday, right?
I am looking forward to having you here and having you out for a tour.
One of my friends, they were, because the transition is at the grading periods, right? So a friend of mine is thinking about having her kids back on campus, and she said she took her son on the tour to see the campus, and she was really impressed by what the building looked like. So I keep hearing good things about it, but so I'm going to transition over to talking to Stacy, our teacher, who's a guest. Well, first of all, do you like the building? Do you like being in that building?
I do love it. I mean, as we said, it's nothing like another basis building. It is repurposed, which is really awesome. And it's a different layout for sure, but it is beautiful. I think the first thing that we all said when we came in were, wow, there's a lot of windows. Or wow, the rooms are so big. They're really big. There's lots of windows. I think one of the kindergarten rooms has 3 walls of windows. It is bright, it's beautiful, and also the surrounding area is beautiful. When we're outside on the playground, it's lush. There's like trees, and it's a different campus for sure. And I really enjoy those differences. It's definitely happier, I think.
That's cool. That sounds great. Stacey, I wanted to ask you about your role as I'm going to put the screen back on the screen, a subject expert teacher, and if you could talk about the co-teaching model that BASIS uses. Actually, I'll add let's see, I've got a link to a post from the BASIS site that explains more how this works. So I want to talk to you because you're living it. So there's the subject expert teachers, and there's also the learning expert teachers.
Yes.
And how does this help the students to get access to a more accelerated curriculum and get access to these hardworking faculty that Chris is talking about?
Yes. So as a SET and SET, I work with the LET. And so my role is specifically academic with humanities. And so we have our math and science set in 1st and 2nd grade, as well as our humanities set, and then all of the specials, SETs. So I work alongside my LETs with a lot of the social emotional learning. So that is a lot what the LETs do. That is their class. They are focused on their growth emotionally and overall academically. And then we work together within that content. So specifically with humanities, I get to work with the LETs a lot because they also teach literacy and connections, which are 2 of our other classes. And literacy and humanities obviously tie in together because of reading and writing. So a lot of the skills that they introduce in literacy, I reinforce in humanities through reading, through practice, and just through general content lessons. They tie it right into each other. And with connections as well. For instance, I was covering a connections class today, and we are talking about ancient China in humanities in 2nd grade. And our connections assignment was to learn about the invention of kites. And that happened in ancient China. So the students got to learn about the invention of about kites in ancient Egypt or ancient China. Sorry, different grades. Ancient Egypt is 1st grade, ancient China is 2nd grade. And so it was really nice for me, who I don't normally get to teach connections. I got to tie that in with them, which was really fun. And in 1st grade, they were talking about treaties, and we had recently talked about the 13 colonies prior to Thanksgiving. So they got to really tie that in together. And that's just one of the ways that they do that. I've been really excited to work with our LETs. It's different for me because I was a kindergarten expert teacher last year and the previous 3 years. So I kind of had a different role in terms of I was all of the content and all of the social emotional growth. And so it's been hard for me to let go of that class, the one teacher, one class type of thing. But it's been really nice to have that effect, like to have such an effect on so many different students. So now instead of having just 30 students, I have 90 students. So it's a lot more students, but I get to work alongside some great teachers that help to support me and get those students the support they need, whether it's academic or emotional. So it's definitely a unique model in that sense.
Yeah, oh, that's exciting. So I guess I'm lucky that I've been able to tour BASIS schools, and I've seen the kindergarten classrooms like you're talking about, where there's like a teacher kind of covering all those areas, right? And then I've also seen the little well, I guess pre-COVID, right? The first and second grade students, they would actually like walk down the hall to a different
Yes, they get to
room sometimes,
travel.
right?
So
Yeah.
we aren't traveling as much this year, so I'm traveling. But it's still the same. I'd say it's a pretty similar experience where they have to adjust to the transition. That's something that I didn't do in elementary school. I didn't transition until middle school. I'm sure a lot of adults are the same. So it's something that we put a lot of responsibility on their shoulders at a young age, but they do enjoy it. It's something that I think is very unique to Basis, is that model of responsibility. We have lots of different things in place to make that happen slowly over time, especially the older they get. But I think that's one of the most important things about the Basis model is the responsibility that we put on the student.
And the co-teaching model continues. How many grade levels at Northeast? Because I know it's like at the other primary campuses, there's a transition to the Chavano campus. But
do you want to speak to this first? No,
whichever one you want.
It goes up to third grade on our campus.
Yeah, so the co-teaching runs through third grade, and then our campus currently is through fifth grade. And so our fourth and fifth grade team works very closely together, but in fourth and fifth grade, it's a single teacher model. And it looks a lot more like middle school. And they're able to do that because, as Stacey said, that responsibility gets put on them at an early age. And so that transition, it's a natural transition. It's just what's next. It's what they're ready for. And but next year we'll be all the way through seventh grade next year here, which is super exciting.
Yeah, that is actually. So I have my next question is for Chris. Since I've already got Chris talking, but so one thing that Basis is known for is students having access to advanced courses. And I think like by the time they get to the high school level, that's really dramatic as far as like when they start taking AP classes, like they're doing it much earlier than when most schools are offering AP classes. But how does Basis Primary kind of lay the foundation so that kids are ready for the AP classes and stuff that they're doing like in middle school, high school?
Yeah, no, that foundation lane is huge, and we're definitely seeing throughout our network as our primary students are making their way up to the high school in larger and larger numbers, that preparation is especially there with some of the soft skills, with the responsibility, with the accountability. How do you ask good questions? How do you take notes? That's actually where we're seeing some of the strongest part, is because the kids have been challenged and pushed academically as well as in those soft skills from a young age. They're developing them because they can do them. They can rise to that level because that's just what school is, and they can do that. And so it's really those soft skills where we're seeing a lot of it. But from a content perspective, if we're expecting our high school students to take college classes, freshman year, they're all taking AP courses. That means that's a natural progression downward. So, starting in first grade, with Stacy's humanities class, they're really doing second grade level TEKS and covering second grade standards. And so that means kindergarten, we're building between kindergarten and first grade. We're really covering kinder, first and second grade TEKS all together during those 2 school years. And so that's things with the literacy and the math, and as well as things with the fine arts, and really making sure that we have a very strong full liberal arts program that covers those fine arts and those pieces too, because they do contribute a great deal to the students' overall education and that access to understanding the different pieces. It was amazing the other day seeing the kids were talking about fractions for one of the first times in second grade. They were all referring back to our music class that they had with Miss Wheeler, where they'd already learned about half of this stuff because of the music notes that she had taught them. And so there was a great deal of overlap there, but the academic rigor starts at a very young age, but it's a joyful rigor. There's a joy in working hard because we're engaging the whole time. And it's not rote memorization and just pushing kids. It's academics first, not academics only. It's definitely the whole child. As Stacey said, I liked her example with the treaties that the kids were working on today. They were so proud after school to show them to me as I was coming to just check on something. They're like, look at our treaties. And that was such a great way to tie in the history, but also to tie in the social emotional side of things that the teachers have been working on. And how do we interact with each other? We're 6, we're 7 years old. how do we talk about that and formalizing that? And that's just a really great example of how you can do that in an academic way, but still embrace the whole child.
Yeah. No, that's really exciting. I'm glad you're bringing stories about like the the lessons that folks are having on campus. And that's something I know. It's these days it's harder to have like open houses and tours and stuff like that. But I think through sharing these stories, if families can think, I think my kid would enjoy something like that. Maybe I need to look at BASIS.
It's always. I was just to say one more example for that for this sort of rigor was. It's always funny to see new BASIS teachers that haven't taught at BASIS previously when they hear conversations in the hallway of like the younger primary grades, the early primary. For instance, I came out of second grade after my class and we were talking about the dynasties. And one of our fifth grade science teachers just kind of heard and was just like, "You guys are talking about dynasties?" And just it was just so funny for him to be like blown away by that. And I always forget that that's not normal for a lot of schools. So
you sort of get used to it. Yeah. I know that my kids will sort of start spouting off facts or we love going to museums. And so we'll go to a museum and then, because we go to museums so much, like the curators, like they kind of know us. It's like, hey, it's the Cottons. And then, my kids will start like talking to the curators. And then I realize like, okay, yeah, not all families do this, but, but this is our thing. And when we meet up with our BASIS friends and go to the museums too, then they start like, quizzing the curators about dinosaurs. It's good stuff, and it's joyful. It's not showing off. It's not, competitive. It's like, it's just the joy of having all this knowledge and knowing how the world works and knowing history about how we got here and just being full of that knowledge. It's great to see kids have that energy. I want to share the encouragement for.
Oh, right. She's in the coding club right now.
That's one of the fun things about StreamYard. I love video. And then Becca says she says. So I just want to share good vibes from the folks who are watching the video. So I wanted to ask Stacey a question. So one thing that I'm hearing from families locally and like things I'm reading like on other sites is that because of the pandemic, some families are choosing to keep their kids home for pre-K or for kindergarten, or they just feel uncertain about what to do. Like it's hard to make that. It's always hard to let go of your kids and leave them at a school like for pre-K or kindergarten. But this year it's especially hard. But laying that foundation for the advanced coursework later, like Chris was talking about, that's really important. So I was wondering if you could talk about some of the benefits of kindergarten in particular, right? So if there's families who are, maybe they've been homeschooling for kindergarten, but they're thinking, okay, I think I'm ready to have my kids go on campus for this year. Or if they're thinking for next year, they could apply to BASIS to have their kids go to BASIS San Antonio Northeast for kindergarten next year. So just, kindergarten in particular, like why there would be a benefit to actually bring your kids on campus for that.
Yeah, especially, so even if you haven't considered signing up for first grade, but just kindergarten specifically, we offer a lot of movement and play in kindergarten. We have the biggest classrooms are our kindergarten classrooms. There's lots of movement in the classroom. And we also have on our campus specifically a beautiful playground right outside of our classrooms that they can see. I don't know if that's good for them or bad for them because they can see them very clearly, but the beautiful new playgrounds, they also have movement. So we don't have PE in kindergarten, we have movement, which is physical education. And they get to learn a lot of their gross motor skills there. And they have that every single day. Still with, even in this time, right? We still do?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to make So that's something they have every single day, which is a lot of movement for them. So they have their recesses as well as their movement. And then also just the academic rigor and joy. So when I taught kindergarten, it was so much fun. The students, no matter what school they're going to, they come from different backgrounds. They might have gone to preschool, they might have gone to daycare preschool, they might have been homeschooled. And it also depends on the area of the type of students that we're getting. But what's nice about our kindergarten program is it's also the co-teaching model. So we have those two teachers in place. So it really does help from our early education from K through 2 to have that learning, that co-teaching learning model, because it helps those students that might not have come for kindergarten or did not go to preschool or perhaps have lived through a pandemic in the last year. to get the support that they need. Especially as we're seeing this year, it's been really beneficial to have that second teacher in the room to support the students. And I'm not really surprised anymore with the students, what they can accomplish in kindergarten, because it can be fun. You know, we do projects, we would do, you know, big topics. We would talk about the scientific method, and they would have big questions. They would have, you know, big answers too for those questions. And it's been really exciting in first grade to see. We don't have any returning from first grade, but we do have some second grade returning, and it's been really nice to see that they've had that sequential growth of those big questions. They can answer those questions, they can ask those questions, but being in the kindergarten, having that leg up is really great. They want to be challenged, like Chris said. Kids like structure as much as they fight it. They like structure, and they love to be challenged, because what more does a 5-year-old want than to have a competition? They love to have a challenge. And so getting them in on their education, getting them to be to take charge of that at that early age is really beneficial to wherever they end up in their later education, so that they know what they're capable of and they know how to speak up for themselves in their academics, because I think that's what the most important thing is in kindergarten, is getting them started and excited for learning. That's what I always tell my parents, is getting them excited to learn, because how many students came back after the 6 months of school and what was school? They forgot what school was after 6 months. So getting them to remember what it is and be excited about it again has been one of our primary goals here on campus. And so I really think that's what kindergarten's most important thing is to get them excited to be challenged. Yeah.
They can learn like that school is fun, and they're learning cool stuff, and they get these breaks. Like they get lots of movement breaks, and they get to play on the playground. And
they get lots of movement breaks. And we do have they have all the specials. They have multiple specials a day. So it's not just, it's not just math and English and literacy. They get to have music class and art class and movement. And then they also get their core subjects as well as their recesses. So I think they've really been enjoying the school year. Every time I go into the classrooms, they seem to be excited. It's a different year for sure. But I think it's been good for everybody to kind of get that adjustment back into learning.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask a question for Chris. I'm going a little off script here, but I guess so. The questions I was asking Stacey were kind of framed around like the classroom experience, but BASIS is still offering families a choice of doing on campus or distance learning. So I was wondering if you kind of comment on that, like in case anybody's like, yes, I think I'm done with homeschooling, but I don't think I'm ready for my kid to go on campus yet. That they have this distance learning option that they can choose.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with kindergarten, we know a lot of parents at the beginning of the year, understandably, were nervous, weren't not sure what to do. And, Texas, we're fortunate to fund full day kindergarten, but it's also an option. And so a lot of parents did what we love as part of the school choice movement, is they made the choice that was best for their family at the time. But when we're looking at our Families Choose plan, our families can choose in-person instruction, in which case we have seats available in kindergarten. Or they can choose distance learning as well. And our distance learning kindergarten program still includes a lot of what Stacey's talking about. They still have breaks throughout the day. They have recess breaks. They actually are following the schedule that they would have had if they were here in person, with some exceptions where we're not having snack time together, although we do often have a lunch bunch and a chance for the kids to come and they hang out and they lunch together. I know our first grade LET, Miss Davis, does that all the time. But they're having their humanities classes and their fine arts classes. And so they're still able to really get that deep experience. And we're fortunate that Miss Creech, who is actually a transfer from one of our other campuses, is the one heading up our students who are online for kindergarten right now. And she is passionate and vibrant. And I can promise you her classroom experience in teaching comes across through the video with the kids. And it is engaging. And those are live lessons that the teachers are doing with students. So there is some pre-recorded stuff, but by and large, all of our classes with our students who are learning remotely are live. They're recorded in case families need or want to access them later, but it's live and it's interactive, and it allows the teachers and the students to really build that community. And so it's getting that exposure to literacy, but it's also getting that exposure to the teachers and to school and to having a little bit of structure, but also having the great stuff, which is asking the big questions and having big answers that may or may not be right, but having them, and that's an idea that is coming from somewhere, and being able to express that, I think, is super important. And they still have all those specials too, so it is absolutely still available to all those families.
Yeah. Well, one thing, and this is sort of my aside, is that my observation about BASIS over the years is that it is a tech savvy organization, that you guys already had a lot of Microsoft stuff up and running, and that the transition to distance learning, I mean, it happened like over spring break. Like, you guys didn't actually lose any learning time in the spring, and I was just blown away by that. I mean, that's, like you said, a very hardworking group of faculty. But that is
100% where the credit goes, is to the faculty. And that same thing is what we experienced at the beginning of this year is, and then with this transition to half our students online and half on campus, we're not teaching any of them like at the same time. So we're not teaching to both. Yeah, we're not doing concurrent, although with our 2-teacher model, we do have a couple of classes where they're swapping back and forth in the middle of class, but we're not trying to play both games at the same time. But how well our teachers have adapted and worked hard to make sure that, we made a promise, and our teachers made the promise that we are going to do everything we can for these kids. And I got to tell you, when Stacey makes that promise, she's here at 7:00 on Friday nights. And that's not making anything up. She's here before me most days too. That they really are doing everything they can. And that's also with the intervention piece. And I wanted to tack on that because Stacey was talking about that 2-teacher model, and especially this year, how beneficial that's been. Is, we came into the school year with a big focus, knowing that not just a new school, although that was part of it, but that also our kids were coming in with 6 months of, not a fairly typical educational experience. And so coming in, knowing that our kids some were going to be ahead, some were going to be behind, and utilizing that 2-teacher model. So interventions was a big focus, and making sure, right, we're pulling kids for small groups to really work on intense focused skills to help remediate that. But then also doing it with the students who in first grade or in kindergarten might be reading at a level K, and in first grade, we want to continue their growth in that pattern too. And so there's been a really big focus on the teachers of doing that, but not only doing it, but tracking it and seeing what works and making sure that we are following through on that pattern of things to make sure it's done right. So it's been especially important this year. And that goes back to your point of starting in the middle of the year. It's where the 2-teacher model helps. We can help the students catch up. It's going to take work. Of course it's going to, but that's okay. Hard work is good. That's a good thing. It's fun.
Yeah. And the support is there because you want every kid to succeed and find their place at BASIS. Yeah. So, we got through the comments. We got another shout out. You mentioned Ms. Creech and it's like the culture, and when I talk to families, I think there are folks who, I worry sometimes about my daughter and feeling disconnected from friends, and and so I try to help her connect, whether it's in Minecraft or things like that, and make sure that she's able to participate in her class and ask questions, and I think that if there are families who are feeling lost and feeling like they don't have enough support, I think they should be aware that if they do decide to enroll their kids at BASIS, that they will get support from really smart, hardworking teachers, and from a system that's designed to give kids those soft skills that you mentioned, right? Like note taking, and they've got their CJ, so they know what their assignments are, and that they're learning all those skills along the way, and it's laying this foundation so that they'll be able to really hit their stride when they get to middle school, high school.
Yep, that's the goal. Build it early.
So I'm gonna ask Stacey, are there any other stories or examples or things you want to share about how you can see even young kids using critical thinking or problem solving skills, or because you mentioned maybe Chris mentioned, or the treaties, and I guess that they were looking at the kites and things like that. So any more just sort of stories or examples?
Yeah, so we do nows in our in basis. We are very big supporters of the do now, having the students come in and sort of take initiative on their learning to review what they've done. And what I've been doing, especially this year, because of our situation, and it started online because I really wanted to be able to get the students connected and talking. It's very difficult to have all the kids talking. And so I started doing visual thinking strategies. And so I've been doing that in first and second grade, and they absolutely love it. I am able to connect it to any of our topics in humanities. And so what we do is we put up a photograph or a picture of something that we've been talking about, and I give them 3 questions. And by now they know it, and they know their sentence stems they start with. They see a photograph, for instance, we were learning about the terracotta warriors yesterday. And so in second grade, they had an image of that. They had slightly been introduced to it, but they didn't know any information about it. And so I just shown them the photograph, and they have 3 questions. They can state what they notice. They can state what they wonder, ask what they wonder. And so they can either start with I observe or I notice or I wonder what, or I started with a question sentence. And so at the beginning, it was a little bit rough for them to figure it out. But since we've started, the students love it. They love when we have VTS days for our do now, and then they get to write those things down and share them with the class. And I think that's the most fun for them. They love sharing. I think they've really missed that part of education, whether they were online or they're back in person now, just having that disconnect for over the summer and previous after spring break. So we do a lot of visual thinking strategies. And so that allows them to ask those big questions. I have heard some amazing questions. They've led themselves to the answers that I was going to teach them about later on in the day before I could teach it to them, which was fantastic. And they've been able to connect it to other content areas. So, using timelines, and we've gone over maps and talking about scaling. And so they've been able to talk about that math and graphing, all the graphing with different photographs that we've talked about. So they've been able to use that information cross-curricular, which has been really awesome. And I love being able to hear, especially the first graders, because they're a lot younger than I anticipated them being. I think it was just from the time off. And so getting to hear them use big language, like I observe that so-and-so this. And so it's been really great to not only, it makes me happy, but I get to see them explore their knowledge in a way that I don't think they knew they could at the beginning of the school year, where we started from. So that's been really fun. And I did something like this similar in kindergarten. It wasn't as frequent, but it was something I would use to introduce a topic. And so it's been a really great way for me to introduce topics to the students, especially about those big topics that we learn in humanities that they may have never heard of before. So it's been really good to get their intrigue up and to get them talking about it.
That's wonderful. I'm thinking I might use that in meetings, because a lot of icebreakers are kind of lame, but this is not lame. This is
you should look at VTS. It's great. I did some trainings on it a few years ago, and I did one over the summer. I really enjoy it. I think it's a great way it is a good icebreaker because people have different opinions or thoughts on something. And it's really interesting to see between the 2 classes. Sometimes if it's a holiday, I'll use the same image for first and second grade. And the things that I get that are completely different or completely the same is so interesting to see.
Right. And the fact that you're getting them talking, and because they're craving interaction, and they're not able, if they're doing distance learning, especially, they're not able to get it. But then you're giving them, when they are talking, it is related to the curriculum. It's not just random show and tell. It's it moves, right? Like you said, that they're through their observations and the sort of the wisdom of crowds, they're able to get to conclusions that you didn't even get to yet. Yeah. That's really exciting. Well, that's a great example. Okay, so I want to as our time is winding up, I want to go back to Chris and ask, specifically, now that families have had a chance to hear from Stacey and hear from you about what great stuff is happening at Basis San Antonio Northeast, what should families do next?
So if you are interested in enrolling, go to enrollbasis.com. And that you can fill out an application. We're in open enrollment right now, and that is your best opportunity when a school is new, which we are, but also in the youngest grades. That's your best opportunity to get students into the BASIS program. We oftentimes fill up very quickly, especially as we start to grow. And so that's the best opportunity to get in is during open enrollment, and that's through December 15th. Although you're welcome to make that decision afterwards too, we will still keep that open. Also, if you're interested for a tour, this is also open to you, you can go to our website, Basis San Antonio Northeast .org or basised.com/San Antonio Northeast. And that has all of our upcoming events on it. We have an info session next Thursday. We have another one on the 17th. And then we're also doing tours twice a week in very small numbers. So you can sign up for any of those and come in and see the building and ask some more personalized questions and hear more about the program.
Let's see, I was checking. Oh yeah. Okay. So the Basis Ed team, they're making sure that we cover all the bases. Let's see. And they mentioned, they added a link to
our virtual tour. It's up. Yay.
How cool is that? I'm going to go check that out because I haven't seen the building yet. Yeah. And then like in the description of the video, there's a link to our enrollment guide blog post, which I published back in October. We update it every year, and it talks about all the Basis campuses. But I'm really glad that we had this session to focus on Basis San Antonio Northeast because it's the newest campus. And I'm really happy that Stacey, that you joined us to talk more about the primary program, because that's just a great opportunity for families to get their kids a Basis education starting from the early years. And with all the uncertainty that's out there, this is something that families can hold on to, as knowing that they're taking good care of their kids and giving them a really solid foundation on reading and humanities and math and science and all the specials, art, music, all the good stuff. Well, great. Well, do y'all have any closing thoughts, or let's see.
I really want to thank you, Inga, for your support of us, but also your support of the school choice movement, and really making sure that families have all of the information to make the decision that's best for their family. I think it's an important part of the overall movement, and making sure that families have that information. So for those of you who haven't already, continue to check out San Antonio Charter Moms. It's a lot of great information out there, and a great resource for parents reaching out for questions and help about, my 5-year-old is struggling with this, is that normal? And those kind of questions too. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, because we're trying to help families problem solve with whatever kinds of schools they need or whatever enrichment they need. And this year, it's been, I think we've really tried to fill a gap where it's a tough time to be a parent, and it's a tough time to be a kid, and but we're trying to make the best of it.
Thank you, Inga, for having me. This is lovely.
Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you for doing it, Stacey.
I look forward to meeting you guys in person someday, and when I come to campus. But I'm really grateful that you could come on the video and talk to parents about Basis San Antonio Northeast. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you later.